Week 1 is officially in the books, coming with all the normal, unexpected happenings of an NFL Week 1, and one abnormal, unexpected happening. The Aaron Rodgers injury is the biggest shame. That team, obviously, is loaded. The roster is really good. For them to still win that game against the Bills was insane, but I really wanted to see Rodgers in a Jets uniform for the entire season. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. Other surprises of Week 1, though? The Buccaneers beating the Vikings, very opportunistic in that game. The Lions beating the Chiefs, I'm not sure it's fair to call that a surprise, because the Lions have looked very good. Kadarius Toney, as much as he was a double agent for the Lions, don't let that take anything away from what the Lions did in Week 1. Beating the Chiefs in Arrowhead is no small task. The Browns beating up on the Bengals. They always play the Bengals tough, but to beat them that badly was definitely a shock. The Cardinals actually hanging close with the Commanders, again very opportunistic in that game. Didn't win it, but they showed a lot of fight. And the Steelers, surprising in a bad way, 30-7 losing to the 49ers. As much hype as that team had coming into Week 1 after the preseason, they did not look ready. They got punched in the mouth and just looked shell-shocked. So our record after Week 1 is right down the middle, 8-8, which for Week 1 I will take. So many unexpected things. You really don't know anything about any of the teams. You can think you know, but a lot of stuff plays itself out on the field in Week 1 and really for the first couple of weeks. So happy with 8-8? For Week 1, we'll take it. But I do want to keep the recap of Week 1 brief. Let's get right into the Week 2 picks. We have the Thursday night game, Vikings at Eagles. Vikings coming off the loss of the Buccaneers, again in which the Buccaneers were very opportunistic to be able to get that win. The Eagles coming off a close game with the Patriots, just a toe drag away from maybe losing to the Pats in Week 1. I think the Eagles are going to be ready after having seen how close that was, how vulnerable they were to losing to the Patriots, and the Eagles absolutely smoked the Vikings last year. I don't know if it's going to be as lopsided, but I do think the Eagles win this one Thursday night. Ravens at Bengals. Ravens coming off a win over the Texans in which they didn't look all that great. The Texans played decently well. I actually thought CJ Stroud looked okay. The Bengals coming off that 24-3 absolute romping to the Browns. I think the Ravens are actually going to win this one. I don't know that Joe Burrow is going to be able to throw for 500 yards against this Ravens defense like he's done in the past. I have no idea what that was Week 1. Maybe it was because Joe Burrow was injured and maybe he's going to come out firing, but I think the Ravens are in a better position right now, and I think they beat the Bengals and send them to 0-2. Now, Seahawks at Lions. Lions coming off that extremely uplifting win against the Chiefs, the first game of the season. Seahawks coming off a disappointing loss to the Rams, and a pretty definitive loss. I think the Lions are going to come back and win this game. Now, last year, this was a super high-scoring matchup. I think the Lions' defense is going to be considerably better. I think they continue what they had on offense against the Chiefs. I think they start this season 2-0 and send the Seahawks to 0-2. Moving on to Colts at Texans. Anthony Richardson looked pretty good in his debut. Definitely had his share of moments where maybe it wasn't as polished as you'd like it to be, which is exactly what was expected from Anthony Richardson coming into the NFL. I was also relatively impressed with CJ Stroud. So one of these top 5 QB picks from this past draft gets a win this week. I think it's going to be Anthony Richardson. I liked what I saw out of the Colts. Showed a lot of fight against the Jags. The Jags are expected to be a really good team, and they hung in there. They had the lead for a while. Some fluky stuff, but a lot of it I think was very much replicable. I think they go in there on the road and get their first win. Another 1 o'clock kickoff, Bears at Buccaneers. The Bears coming off that loss to the Packers. I think fairly surprising. I did predict the Packers to win, but I did not expect it to be in that fashion. They really played well against the Bears. Jordan Love looked good. Justin Fields, he still exhibits that electricity on the field, but it just wasn't enough against that Packers defense. Buccaneers beating the Vikings. Again, I think also in kind of a surprising fashion. I think they continue it. I actually thought they looked pretty good. As opportunistic as that defense was, I think they're going to get more opportunities this week. If they keep that up, I think they enter Week 3 2-0. A big one, Chiefs at Jags. Jags coming off the win over the Colts. Maybe not the most convincing win that we would have expected with the rookie quarterback starting for Indy. Chiefs coming off the loss to the Lions there in the very first game of the season. I think the Chiefs need this. If Travis Kelce plays, I think they're going to win. Now, I'm out of town this week. I have to actually make my predictions on Tuesday, so I don't have as much injury info leading into this week as I would like. but I'm going to assume Kelsey plays because I think the Chiefs really need it. I think the Chiefs get the win. I expect it to be a close game, maybe high scoring. The Jags have looked good as of late. Receivers doing very much or not. Hard to bet against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, especially losing 2 in a row. I think they win this. One that I feel a little less sure about, Packers at Falcons. Again, the Packers coming off that big win over the Bears. Falcons beating the Panthers, that week 1 divisional matchup. Bryce Young threw a couple interceptions. This was a game in which they were able to pretty much impose their will on the Panthers. I don't know that they can do that against the Packers defense. That defense is actually better than I think it gets credit for. I think the Packers are going to win this. As much as I like what the Falcons have done, I expected them to win week 1. I was very impressed by Jordan Love in his debut as Packers QB1. I think they keep it rolling. I think they get another win and actually position themselves pretty well in the NFC North after 2 weeks. Now, Raiders at Bills. The Bills coming off that awful Monday night game in which Josh Allen was turning the ball over left and right. Raiders coming off a win over the Broncos. Was a 16-17 game and the Broncos missed an extra point. I can't imagine the Bills lose this game as well. They have to keep pace in the AFC East. I really think, based on what we saw in week 1, the Dolphins may have the fast track to first place in that division, but I don't think the Bills let them get that far ahead, at least yet. I think they do beat the Raiders at home and at least keep their divisional hopes alive after really playing sloppy week 1. And for the last 1 o'clock kickoff on Sunday, Chargers at Titans. Chargers coming off that high-scoring game against the Dolphins in which they weren't able to close the deal. Titans, they played a ugly game against the Saints as expected, but my goodness, Ryan Tannehill, 3 interceptions, that didn't look good either. They weren't able to pull that off. I think the Chargers are just going to out-offense them. I expect it to be close because that is just what Titans and Mike Vrabel coach teams do, but I think the Chargers are going to be able to win this game and get to 1-1. A game that probably not many people expected to be very good at coming into this season. 49ers at Rams. The Rams really impressed in week 1 against the Seahawks. Obviously, the 49ers absolutely smoked the Steelers 30-7. Brock Purdy looked good. Brandon Ayuk was catching everything thrown to him. Christian McCaffrey had over 100 yards rushing. Just generally 2 teams that look good week 1. I think there's 2 different kinds of looking good, though. I think the 49ers look considerably better, and I think they continue that quest to get to the Super Bowl again with Brock Purdy. If he can stay healthy, I really might predict them to do it. I think they're actually the class of the NFC right now. 2 0-1 teams going at it with a 4:05 kickoff. Giants at Cardinals. Giants laid an absolute egg on Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys, 40-0, and they just couldn't get anything going. The Cardinals actually played pretty competitively, albeit against lesser competition in the Commanders. I think Brian Daboll is going to coach the Giants up. I think they're going to be able to get this win. I wouldn't be shocked if Jonathan Gannon and the Cardinals keep it close. I just don't think they have the horses. They released Colt McCoy. Josh Dobbs played okay, but I don't really think he's a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. Super smart guy. Loved him as a Steeler, but I don't think he's going to be able to do enough to beat a team that had playoff aspirations once again going into this year. A few days ago, this had a lot of interest. Jets at Cowboys. Zach Wilson starting for the Jets. It has been confirmed Rodgers is out for the season with a left Achilles tear. Just an absolute bummer. I think this game could have been really interesting. As good as the Cowboys looked on Sunday night, I think that continues. I think they win this game fairly comfortably. Again, Jets roster is great. They'll probably manage to keep it close for a while, but Cowboys roster is also pretty darn great, and I think they're going to eventually get a lead and just hold it. And the last 4:25 Eastern kickoff on Sunday, Commanders at Broncos. The Broncos coming off that game in which they missed an extra point and lost by 1 to the Raiders. The Commanders having beat the Cardinals, I'm sure they're really excited. Dan Snyder's no longer in the building and they win their first game. However, going into Denver, I think the Broncos really need to show up here, and I think they're going to. Sean Payton knows what's going on here. He understands what's at stake, and I think if Russell Wilson doesn't start to perform, he could be in for a rude awakening, but I think Sean Payton gets enough out of him. The longer he's in this system, the better, and I think they do beat the Commanders on Sunday. Sunday Night Football has the potential to be a good one. Dolphins at Patriots. The Dolphins have to be feeling really good after beating the Chargers 36-34. Tua threw for like 450 yards. Tyreek Hill had 200 yards receiving. The Patriots played the Eagles well. I thought they were pretty competitive. They got down early, fought back, and again, they were a toe drag away from maybe winning that game. I just think, again, though, the Dolphins are going to be too much. I think they're going to get that win. I will be very intrigued to see what Bill Belichick does with that Patriots defense to try to slow down this high-flying attack from the Dolphins. I just don't think he's going to be able to stop it enough, and I think the Dolphins are going to win. And there are two Monday night games this week. We have the 7:15 Eastern kickoff, Saints at Panthers. The Saints coming off that ugly win against the Titans. Panthers coming off a not so well played loss to the Falcons. I think the Saints actually keep it up. Derek Carr looked okay. Couple of mistakes here and there that definitely were not the best, but they were better than I thought they were going to be. And again, opportunistic defense. Bryce Young threw 2 interceptions week 1. They're going to lean on the rushing attack for sure, but I think the Saints defense steps up, and I think they get a win, and they go to 2-0. And finally, the last game of week 1, Browns at Steelers, 8:15 kickoff on Monday Night Football. The Steelers in that loss, 30-7 to the 49ers, at home. They just looked flat. They had no answers, just absolutely nothing, minus a 2-minute drive at the end of the first half. I think Mike Tomlin is going to practice them hard. I think he's got them ready. In the past, when losses like this happen, embarrassing losses, especially at home, Mike Tomlin typically practices them really hard, and typically they come out and respond the following week. I think the Browns might actually have the better roster, especially seeing Deshaun Watson kind of looking like his 2019 self running around against the Bengals there. But I think this is just a Mike Tomlin game. When they lose that bad, he practices really hard. He really is hard on the team. I think they respond. I think they get the win. I think they go to 1-1. Browns end up 1-1. Got the Ravens beating the Bengals going to 2-0, and of course the Bengals going to 0-2 like last year, and I still wouldn't be shocked if they win the division. But to recap the week 2 picks, I've got the Eagles over the Vikings, Ravens over the Bengals, got the Lions beating the Seahawks, Colts getting their first win against the Texans, got the Buccaneers beating the Bears, the Chiefs beating the Jags, got the Packers over the Falcons, Bills getting their first win over the Raiders, Chargers winning over the Titans, got the 49ers beating the Rams, the Giants beating the Cardinals, the Cowboys beating the Jets, we have the Broncos beating the Commanders, Dolphins getting a win over the Patriots, Saints beating the Panthers going to 2-0, and the Steelers beating the Browns on Monday night. We are 8-8 after week 1. Hopefully, knowing a little bit more about the teams, having seen how they played, we can do a little bit better this week, shooting for 9-7, 10-6, obviously shooting for 16-0, but that seems pretty unlikely. If we can improve, that would be great, and looking forward to some slightly cleaner football. Partially due to the weather in week 1, and partially due to probably not playing a lot of starters in preseason across the league. A lot of sloppy football, a lot of turnovers and stuff. Hopefully that cleans up, and we see a better week 2, but I think on that note, that is going to do it for this video. As always, I will have a list of all the games in the comments below. You guys can copy it, put in your predictions for week 2. I want to see what you guys think for this coming week of football. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.